our borders. If we don't do anything about the control on the movement of our borders, we're not going to stop these drugs. Regardless of what we do with the cartel, we will not stop the drugs. I said when I presented that it is not only the big five that we have a problem with. They happen to be closer to the government officials, senior government officials, and take control of the entire security cluster. These five. But there's big dogs out there that are sitting and smiling. They are making billions of friends on bringing these drugs into the country and packaging them and reselling them. So until we control our borders.
When you are reading a social media post or an article in the newspaper or even watching news on television and you see a drug dealer being busted, there is this relief. You are being relieved because you know that police have done a great job. The community will be safe because as South Africans, we want to live in a crime-free South Africa. That is our dream. That is why we want the institutions like SAPS, IPID, DPCI, NPA, magistrates, judges, and all other institutions that are part of the criminal justice system to function well without corruption because we want to live in a crime-free South Africa. When we see our youth being involved in drugs, it's concerning to us. Because the youth is the future of this country. After the protests that were happening in KwaZulu-Natal last week, Lieutenant General Mkhwanatsi, who is the provincial commissioner of KZN along with the premier and other government officials, called the leaders of those organizations who organized the marches to come up with a strategy and to have a roundtable meeting where they will discuss the issues, because at the end of the day issues need to be discussed, debated, and that's where the solution will come. After they were done everything, they talked to the journalist who was there. There's a question which was asked to General Mkhwanatsi about someone who's arrested today because that person is dealing in drugs. After a month, that person is back in the community. What he said, it's so concerning. Listen here.
The questions that was asked was regarding the processing of people that are arrested in courts. I think it's going to be important, and I'm going to ask the media perhaps as you get time that you encourage the debate or the discussion surrounding the legal system in our country, because until the public understand what it takes to process a person through the system, people are going to be frustrated. So in this instance, when you find someone with consignment of drugs, for instance, you're going to arrest that person if you suspect that it is drugs. But the drugs must be taken to the forensic lab for testing to confirm. So if it's confirmed that it is indeed drugs, then we have a challenge that we now have to place that case on a court order. With the number of prosecutors we have, and the number of presiding officers that we have, and the number of arrests that are affected by the police, then the system in courts get the list becomes too long, the court roll becomes so long, and the case is delayed because of that. And then comes the time when the person eventually the case matters placed on a court roll, and the person has to be taken through the administration process. The chances, and I'm saying this not necessarily because it's made by me, but the chances of finding a person who's dealing with drugs in a small consignment sent to prison are very small. The person who's got a big consignment of drugs, definitely they end up in correctional services. But the ones that you might be referring to, that you find on the street, for those to end up in court, they might be convicted. But for them to end up in prison or in a correctional service, it is very rare. Why is that? It is because of the overcrowding already that is in our correctional facilities. So what courts end up doing, they convict them, but they give them alternative kind of punishment. Is that a deterrent? Is any rehabilitation that happens in the process? What we see as the police is that we are settling. We take them through court process, and they get found guilty, and they're given a lesser sentence, they come back to the street, they continue doing the same thing. So that's why you're going to see members being frustrated and they keep arresting and arresting and arresting. So it is unfortunate because it is what it is. That's what the police can do. But the challenges are beyond us. I always premier refer to Mr. Lucky Dube, who once said in his song they would be building more prison and they will not be building any schools anymore. I think we've reached a stage in our country that we must build more prisons because there's just criminality in every angle we get. That's why our correctional facilities are full.
For the past week and this week, the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, it is focusing on the drug bust.
We have a national instruction that governs exhibit management in the police. The directives in terms of how we collect, how we package, how we transport, how we save, store, and how we dispose of the exhibit is prescribed in the National Instruction 8 of 2017. And that is communicated, every commander, station commander gets to be trained on that. There are station learning management programs and different training platforms that you have in the police to make sure that everyone is aware of how to handle exhibits. What we see happening, Honorable Chair and members, is just criminal act from within, as embarrassing as it is, but I'm sure honorable members, as you're going to be catching up on the Madlanga Commission on a testimony that the Major General Finn from DPCI is presenting right now from yesterday, is indicating the weaknesses in the system and how officials within the police have manipulated the handling of exhibits in the South African Police Service at the highest level. And there are many of those. We're charging members left and right. In one of my districts in KZN, for instance, in the past 2 months, we have suspended a Major General who's a district commissioner for poor exhibit management, where a large amount of money was lost in the exhibit 13 store under their supervision. And one member or 2 members were dismissed as a result of that. So, but the national instruction is there to guide how we should be doing the work.
Major General Finn, when he was testifying last week, he revealed the intentions of those who are smuggling drugs into the country. This is what he said.
The reason why he's referring to it because it's so close in time. Thank you. Proceed, General. Paragraph 26.
Thank you, Commissioner. Cocaine and heroin are smuggled into the country primarily for the local market, but is also repackaged and for onward trafficking to another country. In other words, the criminal grouping or syndicate in South Africa would assist in repackaging the drugs to make it easier for onward smuggling to another country, usually to Europe. Port authorities are particularly vigilant when vessels arrive from Port of Santos because of the prevalence of drug trafficking from that port. Successful entry into Europe is more likely if the consignment is rerouted to less suspicious countries before onward movement to Europe.
So in this instance, would South Africa be the less suspicious country, or does it go somewhere else from South Africa before it enters Europe?
Well, it depends on the route of the vessel, Commissioners. That will dictate whether there will be stops in between as well.
Thank you.
And it's heartbreaking to learn that the people who are supposed to protect the community and prevent the drugs from coming into South Africa are involved in dealing in drugs. And now we know that drugs come abroad to South Africa through our borders and through our harbor through containers. For the country to win the fight against drugs, human trafficking, and other crimes that I didn't mention, we need to understand how this crime happens, who is involved, and how can that crime be tackled so that it will be resolved and be prevented. So it is so important what is being discussed in the Madlanga Commission. Listen here.
Do you think we have a national crisis at hand?
Yes, we do. We do. Why I say that is because we have only one scanner in the port that takes about 3,000 containers into the country. We scan less than 10% of them as they come in. God knows what in those containers are. Children have been trafficked. illicit goods are moving into those containers. We only have one scanner that sees what's inside when that truck travels on that road, on that N3.
Do you think that that is intentional?
Executive must help us. If portfolio committee and everyone else that helps us to say, how are we prioritizing? What is your plan to deal with drugs? What about this, what about that? And where do you allocate your budget? Then we could be talking now. Instead of when we are saying, why are you buying that property? Why are you using the finance to go and invest in that event? Why don't you buy this resource? You have a truck picking up goods here in Cape Town. It travels from Cape Town with a container until it reaches deep in Johannesburg. It passes 10 roadblocks on the road because there's a lock on the back of that container. It doesn't get searched. Nobody opens it. It leaves Cape Town 1,500 kilometers to Johannesburg without being searched. Sure. And we don't have means to do it. And we need budget. It doesn't cost a lot of money to buy these scanners, but there's no will to buy them. And nobody pays attention on it. You talk, only now that the management of the police is starting a process of procuring it. But we've been talking about this thing for donkey years. It's only now we were starting to do that. When ATTF back in the days would block the freeway, we go and beg at the private sector to help us with a breakdown to remove the trucks on the road. We still do today because government doesn't have tow trucks to remove a truck on the road. That's how bad things we have. And you cannot say there's no budget for it. It's us who prioritize it wrong. And when we have to account, those are supposed to hold us account, I think with respect, majority of them don't necessarily know the business we do. That are sitting as parliamentarians that must hold us accountable. If you don't understand the business of the department that you are managing, you take Mkwanazi, you say he must be a member of parliament and he must hold a department of minerals and energy accountable. I've got no clue what it takes to start a mine. So I want to hold people accountable about the safety and everything in the mine, because I have no clue. So bring a member of parliament to be a member of the committee, portfolio committee of police, and he does not know anything about the police. So you want to hold the police accountable.
Our understanding that narcotics are frequently concealed in so-called legitimate cargo consignments. This concealment takes place in the country of origin where these containers are packed. That is where the so-called rip-on part of this modus operandi comes to the fore, where drugs are concealed. The Eriton case, for example, it was a container containing body parts for Scania trucks. Scania doesn't have a manufacturing plant in South Africa, but an assembly plant in South Africa. And because of the issue that these containers move a lot at sea, there's a space left between the door of the container and the body parts itself. And that cavity is a meter, just over a meter wide. And then we are of the opinion and of the belief, based on what we have picked up and also discussed with colleagues, as I indicated earlier, from other foreign law enforcement agencies, is that when that container then is moved from the owner or the person that rents this container towards the port where the container is shipped from, in that process or in that route, that container is diverted, and it happens very quickly. That's why the rip part of the rip-on happens there, is mentioned there. Then what happens is that this drug consignment is then placed in that cavity. Duplicate seals are then manufactured, and the container is sealed again, because the seal number of a container must correspond with the shipping manifest of that specific container. That container is then placed on a vessel, and in this Eriton case, the vessel left from the port of Santos in Brazil, where the Scania manufacturing plant is in Brazil. So it was transported from this plant to the port of Santos, and from the port of Santos, it came to South Africa, being Durban in KZN. Then, as was indicated, this drug syndicates then have to employ some other person within law enforcement, be that the police, be that customs, SARS or the like, so that they can try and stop this container from going its normal route, to allow them to do the rip-off, where another set of seals is then again used to seal the container again as soon as they rip off this consignment of drugs, and then the container goes on its merry way to the end user of the legitimate cargo within the container.
Advocate Hassan, can I just ask a general question? Good morning, Colonel Stein.
Morning, Commissioner.
What happens when containers get to a port of destination in South Africa? Are they all searched, or do you do a random sampling, or do you only search those where you have received, let's say, a tip-off that there might be something illicit in that container? What happens, what's the procedure when, say, containers from Brazil, 50 of them, from Mexico, 50 of them, land at a port in Durban?
Good Commissioner, the Port of Durban, and as I indicated, we have a number of ports. The Port of Durban, on an average day, that time when we had a look at it, deal with, I think, about 4,000 to 4,500 containers a day. So it would make it a task that is not humanly possible to literally check every container. I know that years ago, there used to be scanning devices, for lack of a better explanation. It was huge X-ray machines that can scan these containers. But I'm not sure. I don't think those are in operation any longer.
So we don't search all the containers. We only search those where you have information that there might be something in it.
Indeed, Commissioner.